paranormal. It surrounds us. It's everywhere. Tonight, you will hear from the people who live and work within these highly active locations, all in the efforts to discover America's most haunted. With your host, ghost hunter and author, Dan Terry.
Good evening, boys and ghouls. I am Dan Terry, your ghost host with the most haunted. And I've got a really neat guest, and I got to tell you a little of the story here before we begin. Gail Conners is a spiritualist. She's a ghost researcher. She's been doing this for quite some time. She founded In The Shadows, and In The Shadows is more than just a ghost hunting team. In The Shadows is, well, I'll let her explain it, but there's a lot going on there. And they are based out of Colorado. So we're going out west, but not just to Colorado. So we set up to talk, and we ended up trying it, and it failed. I don't know if she's got a ghost trying to stop us from this or not, but so we failed. Then she had to go to, I think, part of Colorado, another part. And it happened to be there by Black Canyon, I think it's called. I've been there. I will say this, there's a nearby town with a great John Wayne steakhouse, but that's beside the point. And we tried it again, and it still wouldn't work. So then we waited until she got out to California, tried it again. Now, this ghost is tough. Let me tell you, we still couldn't do it. It just would not let us get face to face on this thing. It was weird. So actually, I got to say, technology and stick-to-itiveness wore it down, and now we're together. So let me introduce you to Gail Conners of In The Shadows. Well, it's been a long road, hasn't it?
I know. I'm laughing because I'm just like, so that little spectral nuisance, I call him Kevin.
Yeah.
Kevin's responsible for every hiccup that goes on. But thank you for your patience.
Oh,
very kind.
I was really wanting to get you on here because of all the stuff In The Shadows is doing. So I'm glad I finally got you on here. And when you get back to Colorado, you're going to start this all over again. Mm-hmm. But tell me about how you got started in this. You were in the energy field, I believe you said.
Sure. Well, it started many years ago, back in the mid to late 90s, when I was living in Albany, New York, and I came across the spiritual church of Albany, New York.
Okay.
And very curious, because even though I had not been exposed to it previously, I was always very interested in reincarnation, life after death, near-death experiences. And I found that group, and it resonated with me. It doesn't carry a lot of religious dogma.
Okay.
It has more of a sense of principles that they believe in, but it also doesn't negate any religions either. So please, I just want to make that clear. It's not them versus everyone else. Spiritualism is near and dear to my heart. And when I started there and started learning more about it, I made a friendship with the woman who I consider my mentor. Her name was Alice Hughes, and she was 100 years old when I met her. So I got to know Miss Hughes very well in a very short. She lived to be 103, actually. And she was the one that really interested me. It informed me about the history of spiritualism, how she got involved in it. And you have to remember, she was born in 1887.
Okay.
Somewhere around there, 1897. So she was a very young girl growing up in upstate New York. Her mom had died when she was fairly young, and brought up by her grandparents and her father. And she first knew something was different about herself that when they were riding in a carriage, as she called it, Surrey, uh, one evening, and they were on the way home. But as they passed a house with a porch step, she saw her mom kind of just floating there. And then she realized the mom kind of wasn't running behind the carriage, but was kind of floating after them. And then she realized she was the only one who saw it. So after that, it happened several more times, and she realized something was different.
Mm-hmm.
So she was a very young girl in the late 1800s, early 1900s, and she ended up going to the Morris Pratt Institute in Whitewater, Wisconsin, which is, I would say, the educational arm for spiritualism.
Okay.
And she went to school there, and she taught there for many, many years before she went back to New York State. So one of the best examples she ever gave me of psychic development, because they did teach psychic development as well.
Mm-hmm.
I took 3 years of it, and then I started teaching. But she said, psychometry in particular, where you hold an object and try to get an impression from it.
Okay.
She said, it's very easy, Gal. You just open your left hand, take a deep breath in, take a deep breath out, hold the object, and just say whatever is the first thing that comes to your mind. And I did. And I was like, this is stupid. And then she explained, I can't remember even now what I came up with, but she took it back and she said, this is how I was taught. She said, the gentleman who was very well known at the time and at the school said, Alice, he gave her his watch, his pocket watch.
Mm-hmm.
Hold it. Take a deep breath in, let it out, whatever is on your mind. Just say it. And she did. And she had the same reaction. It's stupid. He said, all I'm getting is a daisy, and she gave it back to him. And he just kind of smiled and said, very good, Alice. Because my wife's name is Daisy, and she's the one who gave it to me.
Okay.
So she taught me a lot, and she would get impressions. I would say maybe more clairvoyantly than anything.
Okay.
Would get symbols. And she said symbols were the language of spirit. And so with me, for example, she would always see a bear, an image of a bear.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how she would help. That's how she helped me to interpret symbols and work with me to try to develop it. Now, I will tell you, I am not the best psychic because I don't always stop long enough to listen.
Okay. What was the bear?
I think it has to do. She interpreted it as part of my personality, but also she interpreted bears as protection. And honestly, they've become kind of like my own spirit animal over the years.
Okay.
But so I was involved with the Spiritualist Church for many years before I eventually moved back to Colorado.
Let me just nail it down just a little bit more. What is the difference between the Spiritualist Church and the Southern Baptist or the Pentecostals?
Because they're really not based on, as I said, a religious dogma, for lack of a better word. It's more principles, and there's basically 7 principles. You can, for example, the misuse was Christian. Again, they don't discount any religion.
Mm-hmm.
They adhere more to these principles, which is that there is life after death. You reap what you sow. Take accountability for yourself. That it's possible to communicate with spirit through the form of mediumship.
Okay.
Which became very popular in like 1800s and early 1900s.
Mm-hmm.
And still is. The Spiritualist Church still exists. So I think it was that set of principles more than anything that resonated with me. So other religions, for example, I grew up in the Episcopal Church, and
okay.
I haven't denounced it in favor of spiritualism. I just kind of incorporate what we used to always say is, if you come to spiritualism openly, take what you need and leave the rest. You don't have to believe everything about it.
Okay.
Take what works for you or what resonates with you.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that's the best I could say about spiritual in terms of differences.
Then how does that apply to ghost hunting? Somebody calls you up, they think they're got a ghost in the house or whatever. What makes it different?
I think when I grew up, I loved scary movies. I think to this day, one of the scariest, this goes back, I think from the 60s, it was the original 13 Ghosts. I don't know if you remember. Scared the...
Was that Vincent Price?
I can't remember.
Yeah.
I remember it really scared me.
Okay.
And ever since then, I got very fascinated by reincarnation and how does that work? And I had a great aunt, Ginny, who actually very much believed in it. So I would ask her questions all the time. So I was very, very curious. So when I did get involved with it, and so I was in my 30s, actually, when I started going to the Spiritualist Church in Albany. And prior to that, I really wasn't very involved in any religious activities. I've got very engaged in my career and it kind of ruled everything. But the interest in ghosts, I think as I got older and I have friends that had the same interest, we would often go on trips and go explore places that were supposedly haunted. And then later when I was working for a utility company, and this is about the time when a lot of the ghost investigation shows started coming out.
Okay.
And it got very, very popular. So in the utility business, we actually have EMF readers, which are used for energy distribution transmission, actually, to check electronic and magnetic frequencies. And it was funny because I saw them being used on one of the ghost shows one time, and I actually had to go out and meet with a customer to check any frequency coming off of. She was back up against the substation. So I pulled it out and I'm checking and trying to read what, if anything, is coming off the wall behind her. And she was like, "Oh my God, you got a ghost meter." And I was like, well, kind of. They're really not made for that, but they work. So then I would start, when I was doing travels with my friends and checking places out, I would bring it with me. And that's when it got interesting. and definitely deepened my love and appreciation for it.
Okay.
And sometimes a little scary too. But so over the years, in fact, last year I was doing a ghost tour and really enjoying it. I had retired not long before then. And I thought, this is a passion I've had for a very long time. I've always wanted to tell a Misus's story. And actually, since then, I've had a friend pass away that I've wanted to share her story as well.
Okay. Because
she created a wind phone in Silverton, Colorado, that if anybody gets a chance to see, they really should. It's pretty awesome. So it's a combination of the things that led me to where I am now, which I couldn't even have imagined a year ago.
Okay. How do you, as the spiritualist, look upon demons, angels, elementals, which is something I don't know much about at that point? How do you see about other things other than just human spirits?
Well, I think that they definitely recognize negative energy.
Okay.
And I've learned over the years to protect myself when going out somewhere, because I don't want to attract that negative energy. In fact, at the end of the events that I have with folks, I give them kind of a little token, but a little takeaway bag that has a little black tourmaline in it and what that means. So It's for protection. It's for grounding.
Mhm.
So I would say that the best defense is a good offense. So you don't want to attract the spirits. We really encourage people not to be arrogant,
Mhm.
insulting, not trying to get them angry. It's more, I would say it's more an attempt at listening to them tell
Okay.
their story as opposed to hunting them down. So,
But so is there evil, non-human evil spirits, or is this something of dogma?
I think that's a really good question. People have asked me that before. Do you believe in the devil? And I said, well, I believe there's negative energy.
Mhm.
I'm not exactly sure what that looks like. Um, Again, what you give out comes back to you. So if you're executing any kind of behavior that might be very dark or hurtful to someone else, I think you're going to attract that back. Do they
Okay.
exist? Yeah, I think there's negative energy there. I
Mhm.
don't know if I would define them as demons or devils. I honestly have a hard time answering that question.
Okay,
But
that's
but I
nothing
do
wrong with
think
that.
there is negative energy.
In my travels, I've dealt with human spirits who try to make us believe they're demonic, trying to run us
Hmm.
out.
Hmm.
One case I called in some other people who specializes in that, and they said it was demonic, but it seemed to me like they was able to get rid of it too easily,
Hmm.
which it ended up coming back a few weeks later, but that's a whole different story. But in all the years I've done this, maybe one, and I do believe they exist. I think demons are there, but I can't say I've ever actually dealt with one, which of course the TV shows would have you believe they're behind every rock. Have
You
you
know,
dealt with something that you believe might have been at its base core evil?
well, I can tell you one time at band camp.
I don't want
Sorry.
to hear that story. No, this.
Um, I went up to St. Elmo, Colorado, which is outside Mount Princeton,
Okay.
and it's a very, very old mining community that has really retained a lot of the original structures, and it's considered a ghost town. We went up there and we went back to our hotel in Mount Princeton, and then eventually back to. I was living in Colorado Springs at the time, and something came back with me.
Okay.
And my friend who was with me, her name was Brenda, and she said, "Yeah, did you see any kind of prayer or ritual or mantra to have things not follow you home?" And I said,
Hmm.
"No, it never occurred to me." She said, "Well, I did." I said, "That could have been really good information if you had shared it." So something definitely did, and I wish I could tell you honestly the series of events that happened after that, but it was a series of negative uh, situations that occurred. And
Okay.
finally, my friend Brenda said, you need to do something about this." And of course, I saged the house. I went and spoke to a friend of mine who's a psychic medium and kind of a shaman,
Okay.
and she suggested some ritual things to use, and eventually it did leave. But that is the one experience I had that stands out the most.
So
So
would
it
you
was
call it?
negative.
It was negative. Would you call it evil with evil intent?
I don't. I'm not sure.
Okay. Well, like I said, I don't even know if I've dealt with one or not. One may have been. So it's not like I think they're everywhere. In fact, I think it's very, very rare. But maybe I'm mistaking it for something totally different also.
I think that's a fair question, Dan. And I'd actually be curious about some of the stories that you've gone through because I when I interviewed my friend who's a psychic medium, Laura Westfall was on the first podcast. We did.
Mhm.
And she said that she was kind of along the same line. She said she wasn't sure if demons were necessarily a construct of religious dogma or not. She definitely believes there is very negative evil energy.
Okay.
So I liked how she described it because that resonated with me. So I would say, definitely, certainly don't chase it, but sometimes maybe you encounter it, you have no choice. Like I said, this spirit, and I would say a lot, Colorado is filled with so many old mining camps.
Yes.
And there is a lot of death at these places. I mean, I think every building in Cripple Creek is haunted. So it was the time's lack of modern health. It often violent, lawless. People froze to death. People
Sure.
starved to death. And there was violence. In fact, the labor wars in Colorado was what ignited a lot of the pain and suffering in some of those mining camps.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of energy, whether it's active or residual. I've seen both.
Okay.
And one of the best residual, I would say, was I was actually sort of like at Airbnb one time in Guffey, Colorado, which is very much out there in the woods.
Okay.
Walking with a friend of mine, and my mom was with us actually too, and my dog, Rosie. So we're just walking one day, and we're out in the middle of night. There's nothing around. There's no streets. There's no other houses. Some of the buildings on the property dated back, though, to the 1800s. So we're just walking gently and casually, and all of a sudden, it felt as if we walked through a conversation. And my friend and my dog and I all heard it at the same time. It sounded like two or more gentlemen talking, but definitely at least two. So it feels like we just walked through a conversation. We all heard it. My dog turned around and was like, "What is that?" And we kept walking, and when we came back, we didn't hear it again. But it was very pronounced. What they were saying was hard to understand, but it was very clear. And the fact that my dog reacted to it too,
right,
also gave us pause. So I think that was residual energy.
Okay.
Whether it was a year ago, 10 years ago, 100 years ago, something was going on there.
Mm-hmm.
But and certainly at the Cripple Creek Jail Museum too, where I think you have a couple of clips from that. I think they have residual energy as well as active.
Okay. I would like to get down there. I specialize in jails because I was a cop for 30 years. So
you're going to like this one.
I'm going to get down there, I swear. Okay.
You will like it.
So what have you dealt with there? Give me a quick story before we switch over to a commercial.
Sure. Earlier this year in March, I got picked up a couple of things, but one, I used the Hope Spirit Box, which is, a sound bank.
Okay.
And open and close. And just goofing around, really, not doing anything too serious. And my friend was there at the museum as well. And I got this one feedback that at first, I forgot about it, honestly. I didn't play it again until like August. And I went back to listen to it, and I was like, I forgot that was on there. So you hear what sounds like gibberish. Then it sounds like the word Cynthia, and then a dog bark.
Okay.
Well, as far as I know, I don't think the Hope Spirit Box has dog sounds in there.
Mm-hmm.
There were no dogs in the building. So I played it back, and my friend said, Gail, that actually sounds French. And I had taken about 5 years of French, and I was like, oh, I got to listen to that again.
Mm-hmm.
So went back and listened to it, and it actually does sound French. It almost sounds like C'est non moi, Cynthia, and then the dog bark.
Okay.
So I went back to try to translate it, the closest that I could find, and it something to the effect of "It's not me, Cynthia," and the dog bark. Now the dog bark, I have no idea where it came from. It was recorded. I do know afterwards that the museum director told me there had been a dog fight in the basement.
Okay.
So
is that the one you sent me that says dog enhanced?
Probably.
Let's check that out real quick. One more time. I'm making the Cynthia out. You're right.
Yeah, and the dog was just so weird, though.
Uh-huh.
But it does sound like Cynthia. And in fact, my friend is the one who pointed it out. Because again, with the spirit box, you can get, depending on what you get, you can be gibberish or you do get something. But going back and listening to it as French made a little bit of a difference.
I'll bet that's not in the memory banks of that device either.
Probably not, because I don't think they really record words correct. It's just kind of sound. So that was one incident, but then we had quite a few others at the event at the end of September too.
Okay, well, we'll talk more about that, but I do have to step away for just a minute. So hold on, we'll be right back.
Sounds good.
All right, she's done a lot of places, done a lot of things. It's pretty cool, and now we're starting to get into some really good ghost stories, and that's what we want to hear. And a couple things I want you folks to hear is following up here, and I'll be right back.
The new book, How to Research a Haunted House by paranormal investigator Margie Kay and professional researcher Violet Wisdom, is now available from Unex Media. This one-of-a-kind book explains how to do research on a house with uncommon methods and resources used by historic home researchers, and how to determine who may be doing the haunting and why. How to Research a Haunted House can be used by homeowners, renters, investors, and it should be in the library of all professional paranormal investigators. Get this unique book at unexmedia.com or amazon.com. That's unexmedia.com or amazon.com. The Unex Network presents a health and wellness spiritually based brand of hemp-derived CBD products made by Hopewell Farm in Harrogate, Tennessee. We apply our Cathara energy work with all of our plants and products. Our products made in small batches with only 2 ingredients of pure hemp, full spectrum crude oil, and coconut-derived MCT oil. Third-party lab tested for potency and legal THC levels with 6 strengths of 1 ounce oil to choose from. Know what you're buying and get what you pay for from Hopewell Farm. Applied directly to a specific area, Hopewell Farm topical salve in 1 ounce and ½ ounce sizes, made with pure hemp crude oil, comfrey extract, and all natural ingredients. Find the Hopewell Farm link and coupon code on the Unex Network website at unexnetwork.com. That's unexnetwork.com. All
right, friends, we'll talk a little bit more later, but got to get you joining up with the Unex Network. I'm sorry, did it again. Beg your pardon. The Unexplained Network. We changed the name recently, and it still ain't clicking into me. 4 years it was the Unex Network. The Unexplained Network, and there's a lot of perks that come with being a member. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. But I want to get back with Gail and we'll talk some more about the ghosts of Colorado and I'm sure other places. So this Cripple Creek Jail Museum, what's going on there?
There's a lot going on there. First of all, the museum director, her name is Michelle Roselle, and she's been the director for many years, and she's actually led and is part of a ghost investigation team as well.
Okay.
And she's had, and she's kind of a legacy actually in terms of what she's done with the jail museum.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a lot of respect. She actually, now here's something that I think is really cool, and I'm actually probably going to talk about it in a podcast, but
Okay.
she works with, there's a student group up at the high school in Cripple Creek, and she and a gentleman I know, I think from Mountain Peak Investigations, who's been doing ghost investigations for many years, they actually help teach students who are interested in how to do it. It may actually be the first high school curriculum for ghost hunting, and I think it's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So, so Michelle's been affiliated with that for a long time, and people can rent the museum for the evening. There's been a lot of ghost investigations. There are many.
Mm-hmm.
So when I had ours, we did mine on end of September this year. And we had a group of about maybe 15 people. You don't want to get too many, noise pollution
Yeah.
and whatnot. But it was a really good group, and we caught a number of things.
Okay.
One was a woman scream. Now, I didn't capture it. It's actually, but it is on the website. One group heard a woman scream. The other group captured it. Then there was a chain over one of the doors that would have led into the bathroom on the women's side of the prison. So they had women and men in this prison.
Okay.
From about 1901 to about the 1990s, I believe, was an active jail. And there were children there as well. So, unfortunately, this is one of the sadder aspects of that jail. And the time period is if women were arrested and they had no one to care for their children, the children went with them. But very often, some parents just abandon their children. And the law enforcement at the time would bring them to the jail until they could figure out what to do.
Okay.
So you have a lot of different entities, it's very active. And sometimes children's voices, sometimes playful, sometimes not so playful, especially up near where solitary confinement was on the men's side, is a little daunting. So I really would encourage you, Dan, to get out there.
Oh, that will be on the bucket list for sure.
Let me know, because I would go up and join you, Dan.
All right. Well, we'll do that then for sure. Aside from Cripple Creek, what else have you done with your team?
Well, honestly, this just all launched officially September 1st, so it hasn't been super long, but we've had 4 or 5 events now.
Okay.
The first one is the Cripple Creek Jail Museum. The second and third one were at the Pueblo Heritage Museum, which is in downtown Pueblo, and at the site of a very famous flood in 1921.
Okay.
Did a significant amount of damage. So the museum is down there, and they have an incredible amount of artifacts in their museum. And that ended up being so much fun. We did it as a fundraiser.
Uh-huh.
And I love the people that work there. So it was so popular, and we sold out, and there was a waiting list. So we had another one the night before Halloween. That one sold out. We had a waiting list. So people really enjoyed it so much that we're looking at maybe doing something long term, whether it's having events similar to that, or maybe one-off events, doing just maybe something special, or apps or something of that nature. So it ended up being a great connection, and the people that were on the tours were wonderful. And in that place, there's a lot of activity there. In fact, the young lady who works here, her name is Lexi, and one of the first times I met them, her and John, who's the museum director, I said, "Do you guys ever get ghosts in here?" And her eyes lit up, and she was like, "Yes."
Mm-hmm.
So there's a particular named Hank that has been very active there.
Okay.
So I investigated just with Lexi and John by myself before we did the event. There's a lot of activity. They actually have this one doll that's in a case. Now, it doesn't look like the Annabelle doll, but it kind of has the vibe. And I remember looking and I was like, "Oh, you have your own Annabelle doll." And every time that I would take the EMF meter or something close to it, it goes off. And there's nothing attached to it. There's nothing.
Okay.
And then the local television station, KRTO, came and did a segment on it before Halloween. So we met them at like 4:30 in the morning. And they set up over by the doll at one point, and their equipment stopped working.
Wow.
So that was interesting. But I was actually using dowsing rods just as an example, because I give people an opportunity to try a couple different things.
Mm-hmm.
Oddly enough, the dowsing rods have been really embraced.
Dowsing rods have always been my first choice.
Yeah, people really I was really surprised, actually.
Mm-hmm. I love to see their face when it starts moving.
So I always get my yeses to the left, my no is directly ahead.
I just cross for yes and separate for no, but that's what I ask them to do, and that's what they do.
Exactly. And people really, now a lot of people come in with their own ghost apps and get there's a lot that happens there, but EMF meters,
mm-hmm.
the little digital recorders I give folks. I also have another one that I use for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And just a number of different things. And then we set up laser grids, among other things, or trigger objects. The most recent one I did was at the St. Nicholas Hotel in Cripple Creek.
Yes, I know you've talked about that.
That is a cool place. And I've always wanted to do that there.
Mm-hmm.
So that was originally a hospital built in the late 1800s by the Sisters of Mercy Catholic group.
Mm-hmm.
And so recently we had an event there, and the owners are just wonderful. And we basically broke it up into two groups, and took people up to the second and third floors, which is adjacent to the attic, and then the first floor, which has a crawl space. And explore near the kitchen where it used to be where they would sometimes store bodies as a hospital before they could take care of them. Because especially up in that area, if people died during the winter and the ground was frozen, you couldn't do anything with them. So they'd have to store them until the ground was a little more flexible.
Okay, sure.
So the crawl space was really interesting. But they believe, as one of the owners told me, they believe that originally when it was a hospital, maybe that they would put people who were unruly or misbehaved or possibly aggressive down there, which probably would have scared me straight at the time.
No kidding.
It's kind of creepy down there.
You sent a couple other EVPs here. I've got one marked Girl Scream. It's only 3 seconds long, but what are we looking at here?
This was at the Cripple Creek Museum, and that's the one I said, well, one group heard it, but another group recorded it. So the other group that recorded it. And it's always better with headphones, but you'll hear a young lady start to talk, and it happens right before she starts to talk.
Okay.
I know it's short.
All right, I'm going to play that a couple times, and then we'll talk some more about it.
Hello. Hello. Hello.
I'm sorry, it was after she spoke.
After she said hello. Yeah, she said hello, and then I heard the scream.
Yeah.
Any idea what that could have been? Is there a history of that kind of stuff at this place?
Well, there is. There is one prisoner. Believe it or not, in the whole time the jail existed, really only one prisoner died there.
That is shocking.
It was a woman. Her name was Olga Knudsen, and she had a very sad story. She was married to a minor. She had a young son. She was only 30, 31. She was fairly young.
Okay.
And according to the stories I've read and just doing some research on her, she seemingly within a span of a week, and this is where I wish Michelle was standing here next to me, because she really knows the history of it. She started suffering from paranoia, I guess you would say, afraid that people were going to get her or her son, and it got progressively worse during the course of the week, to the point where she was brought into the jail in a straitjacket.
Okay.
So she was kept upstairs in the women's sector. I'm not sure which cell in particular, but based on what I know, apparently she supposedly screamed all night and they found her dead in the morning.
Okay.
And they don't really seem to know why. So that's one story. And there's a matron that supposedly worked there too. And I'm not sure what her name is offhand, but apparently, I guess she was not very nice.
Mm-hmm.
So there were definitely women prisoners there, and some of them were pretty rough, as well as male side, which is up until a certain period of time, the men, it's 14 by 9 cells, and they would sleep in hammocks. I think sometimes 6 to a cell. And finally, the state said, that's kind of unsanitary. So they changed it. But it operated as a jail until the 1990s.
Okay. You sent me one. It's got the sound of a girl groaning. It's very, very short, but was that there also?
I think so. I need to hear it again.
All right, let's play it.
Twice. Twice.
Yep, that was the same night at the jail.
Twice.
Okay, I hear the girl moaning, but do you know anything about who that could be, or was it just an odd one?
No, although, like I said, they have seen children there and experienced spectral children, because again, children were kept there. Mm-hmm. In fact, if you walk up to the second floor, there's one room that has bunk beds in it.
Okay.
Because that's sometimes where the children were kept. So it doesn't surprise me at all.
Okay, let's hear it again.
Twice. Twice.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
Oh, no, and I apologize. I remember the woman was asking a question. And I just, when I edited it, it got cut off. So we couldn't figure out if it was saying no or just
Mm-hmm. It almost sounded more like a pain.
Yeah, it does.
Psychological or physical, but a pain.
Yeah.
So, okay. Now, I know you're also involved with some new stuff that you've got a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And where is that available at?
You can get it on the app, on the website, but also it's downloaded to Spotify and now Apple and a couple others.
Now, is that a video like this one, or is that just the audio?
Right now, it's just audio. It's
okay
with a good friend by the name of Carly Kreiser, and it's somewhat whimsical. I mean, we talk about serious things, but it's somewhat also lighthearted.
Mhm.
I have a tendency to get more into the history of things, and Carly will keep me grounded.
Well, without history, these are just campfire tales.
Yeah, she's like the dean of Shenanigans, and I'm probably more like Professor Conners. Like one of the events in particular,
Mhm.
I talk about the history of paranormal research and why. And I'd be curious to see what you think of this too, as from like the 1800s, even though it was going on long before that, but even the 1800s and using spirit boxes and mediums, seances to the onset of radio and television, computers,
Sure.
cell phones, that how that the ability to have that communication has changed and evolved. And I love talking about that because I think some people, I don't know if they believe that it just started with the advent of television shows, but there's so much research going on right now with it, which is what I love.
Sure.
And one of them is Sonia Rinaldi. She's a researcher who's out of Brazil, looking at ITC communication, which I'm fascinated with.
Okay.
And that's where I really would like to breach whatever that veil is.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know about you, but I think I just have this feeling that at some point technology is going to catch up to what maybe psychics and mediums have known for a long time.
But with AI and all of this stuff we've got now, are we going to be able to trust any of this?
I think that's a fair question. It really is. For example, when my friend came and did the first podcast, we actually did it at the Global Heritage Museum where Hank is.
Mm-hmm.
And without really giving away too much information, I walked her through the facility, and she picked up on Hank very, very quickly, and she described him.
Okay.
Now, Lexi is the one who knows him the best. I haven't really picked up on any physical characteristics, but she described Hank to Lexi, and Lexi was, yep. And you can't, how do you measure that? It's so hard to measure that.
Sure. Yeah. And that's been the problem with ghost hunting all along, is after the Fox sisters, I mean, one of them come out in her time and said, well, we were faking it. And the other one said, no, we wasn't.
Exactly.
But she was getting money to say that too. So it's kind of, you've seen the AI. I've seen it. The stuff looks so real, and yet we know it isn't.
Yeah.
So it's going to be hard to figure it out.
In fact, Sonia Rinaldi brings it up. That's why I even mention it, because, again, I always say energy is the currency. And again, if you look back at the radio and television, what is the constant? Energy.
Mm-hmm.
So now she's doing some experiments with AI and spirit communication. And I find that fascinating. But again, how do you measure that? How can you tell? Not that I distrust her results or anything, I don't mean that. Just even for me to approach it, I'm thinking, how would I do that?
What I found is what we talked about earlier. Give them the rods, let them do it themselves, so there's no question in their minds. When they feel those rods moving, their eyes get big and they start getting frightened. I had one lady, she had Army on her shirt and did not believe in any of this. She was going to debunk it. I'd actually auctioned off some tickets for a charity.
Oh, nice.
And the first time she held it and the rods moved, she handed them off and got out of the room. And we convinced her to try again. She got hold of the rods. They started to move. Next thing I know, she's going out the door and to her car. And her mother-in-law is sitting there going, I'm going to have to go with her, okay? Yeah, go. I understand. Go ahead. But
that's funny.
yeah, you don't know until it happens to you.
You don't. And I've had many, many experiences in my life where I know it's been some sort of spirit activity. Even in the house that I'm in, my dad passed in 2014, in December of 2014. And a couple years after that, I was at the house, and it was about 11:15. There's a grandfather clock in the living room.
Okay.
And the chimes started going off. It was 11:15.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, there was this thud that hit the grandfather clock. And I was positive someone was in the house.
Right.
So, I mean, because in the chimes, it was going crazy. I was like, Mom, did you hear that?
Uh-huh.
And she's like, yes. Look, what was that? I don't know either. So I grabbed my baseball bat and I walked out. I was terrified. And I walked out. I checked everywhere in the house, downstairs, outside. My dog was with me.
Mm-hmm.
There's no one there. But a grandfather clock doesn't do that by itself.
Right. Absolutely.
So something like, it was almost like they would have rammed into it to make it have that effect. And the bells, I mean, they're still chiming for quite a few minutes afterwards.
Right. Do you think it was some spirit trying to get your attention?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure my father.
Okay. All right.
He would have thought he was being funny. But
of course.
I don't think we thought so.
Oh. Gail, I'm afraid we are out of time. But once again, your podcast is called Shenanigans in the Shadows. And your website is intheshadows.com. Am I right?
InTheShadowsParanormal.com.
InTheShadowsParanormal.com. I did not get that written up on the banner. So, and people can find your podcast there, and also on Spotify.
Spotify. Yeah,
all right.
In fact, we're getting ready to download the third one. So we've only done 3 so far.
Okay. Well, I look forward to checking them out then. So, Gail, thanks. Would you stay there for just a few minutes? I'll be back as soon as I say goodbye to the good folks who's been watching us, all right?
Yep, that would be lovely.
All right, be right back. All right, friends, that's Gail. And, you know, we all the ghost hunters, all the people who's done this for a while have those kind of experiences. The voices, the EVPs and all that, but it's always fun to hear the new ones, the ones I was not present in. Because, like I said, we all have them, we all have our fun, and we all get to talk about it. That's the neat thing. Hey, got to tell you about joining the UNX Network real briefly. The Unexplained Network real briefly. Go to Unexplained Network or unxnetwork.com. That still gets you there. And drop down a little bit, and you can join up. It's really simple, and there is so much you get out of this. And let me tell you, the first thing I want to tell you about once you've joined is the magazine. Now, the magazine comes every 2 months, and it's got some really good writers in it. I'm one of the writers. I'm one of the not so great ones, but I got a lot of stuff in here. This one on the left, I had 2 articles in that one. One on the haunted battleship North Carolina here in North Carolina, and the other one was a when I was a kid, every Halloween there would be rumors of cults kidnapping blonde-haired, blue-eyed girls to sacrifice. There was, always the poison in the apples, the razor blades in the fruit, the drugs in the candy, all these rumors flying around. Every one of those rumors had some little nugget of truth in it. And that's kind of what I brought out in that one. This one here was this year, March, and I did an extensive article just on dolls, just on haunted dolls, possessed dolls. And let me tell you guys, that crap just creeps me out to no end. And of course, I had one recently, the last call at the Devil's Diner, which was it was the Tri-County truck stop. It was on Route 66. I was on the first and third ghost hunts in that place. And I did a lot more after that alone with a charity ghost hunt. We do a lot of charity. A lot of the ghost hunting groups do a lot of charity work. And I know Gail does also, and most everyone I've dealt with. But we do a lot, and I was doing a lot there. And the place was crazy. It never failed to frighten people. It never failed to amaze people. Unfortunately, it got hit by a tornado in March of this year, and it was all but destroyed. There's no coming back for that one. But I wrote the article about that, so that was in that one. And all of that comes every month by email, free. You can buy paper copies, but it comes free if you're a member. You also get the newsletter, which tells you about all the shows. And I also want to explain, got a whole bunch of new stuff coming after the first of the year, new shows, new ways, and a lot of neat stuff coming up, which I'll tell you more about as they tell me about it, because they're still nailing down the details. But I asked them here this week, give me some more information. I'm telling people about it, and yeah, it didn't. And you don't have to be a member to listen to the shows. You can do that just by finding us on the Unexplained Network on YouTube or Rumble, or same thing for any podcast. Spotify's got us, iHeart, iRadio, iTunes, all of the podcast homes. But anyway, you get that newsletter and, of course, the blog. And the blog is constantly on fire because of all the weird stuff going on. So be sure and jump on there and check it out. But for now, I'm going to tell Gail, thanks again. I'm going to go chat with her for a while. And you know what you guys need to do? I'm going to tell you. What you need to do is first, stay warm because it's cold out there. Have a great holiday. There's a lot of them here. We just finished Thanksgiving when I'm taping this, so it should be Christmas shortly. And I guess most important of all is I want you good people to stay spooked. Good night.